Welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the ancient art of wire. So I thought I'd show you guys how to make some 3-hoop earrings. They're super beginner friendly, and we're just going to use some round wire. So what I've done here is I've cut 5 inches of 16 gauge round, and then 4 inches of 18 gauge round, and then 3 inches of 18 gauge round. So you're going to want to cut 2 pieces of each. You can make any shape you want. They don't have to be round. They can be oval. They can be pear-shaped, but they're going to be 3 hoop earrings. Totally impromptu this morning. I was thinking of all the old hoop earrings that were really popular in the 70s. So for those of you that weren't born before then, or born around then, you'll still know. Anyways, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to help me build my page. Don't forget to hit the bell so you know when my tutorials are coming up next. And it takes 1 second to give me a thumbs up. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 16 gauge. I've straightened my wires, and I'm going to decide on the size. So I'm using a ring mandrel, and I'm looking at the 11, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be really good. So I'm just going to, you can either do, okay, so for beginners, I would recommend, let me back up, that you mark your wire so you can maintain center. I'm always going to be super beginner friendly. So here's, let me get down here. Each one of these squares is a 1-inch square, okay? So I'm going to come in 2.5 inches because I know I've got 5 inches of wire. And that'll just help you keep center. We can always adjust that. So I'm just going to take my 2 little wires here. I'm going to come down to the number 11. And if I need to make them bigger, I will, because I'm already looking at that thinking that might not be big enough. Looking about how my wires are going to loop around. You can always take a piece of string or tape the length of your wire and measure it around your mandrel so you know how big you want your earrings. I'm going to come down, I think, to 13 because I'm still looking at how much length I'm going to have on top. And I want these to be really big earrings. And I'm still debating, you guys. You're seeing me in my working progress. Let's start at 14. So I'm just going to simply push them around the mandrel, okay? And then I'm really glad I did 14. Now, if you find that you didn't get center and you can see how this side is longer, just push this way over until it meets the other side, and then you'll have your center. So that's a really great tip. I'm always going to use tips, tricks, and techniques to accelerate your journey in the ancient art of wire. So here's our 2 loops. I'm really glad I went down to 15. So now I'm going to get my 4-inch. So these are 4-inch 18 gauge. And I'm looking at this now, knowing the size that I used down here. You guys can't probably see the numbers on here, and I know I used 14. So I'm now looking at these. Let me mark them. And you only need to mark one if you're going to wrap them together, okay? So these are my 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to just mark the center of 1, and let me go ahead and mark the 3-inch. And here's my 1.5-inch mark. Okay. So as before, I'm looking at the size. I'm just going to find my center mark here. And I'm going to come up to my 12, and I'm looking at that. And I think that will work out pretty good because I came up 3 ring sizes on that. So as before, let me find my center. I can't see my little mark. I'm just going to grab these 2 wires. I'm going to push them around the mandrel. And again, if one side is coming higher, just push that side all the way over to the other side so that they're centered up. So now we've got those 2. And I'm going to look at how this is going to fit in there because I want the gap. I might narrow these in a little bit more, but we'll see here in a minute. Now, these 2 I'm going to make much smaller, so I'm going to come up to my 9. Yeah, let me just center these up. And the same thing. This is just totally impromptu. Just thought I'd play around with the wire this morning. And I'm going to swing that over. So we've got our 3 little hoops here. And we're going to see how they're all fitting in each other. That's pretty good. They're lining up pretty good. Let's see. Let me hold this up. Fiddle fingers. So here is what we're looking at. Now you have multiple options here. I'm always going to give you tips, tricks, and different ideas for your inspiration to inspire you to think about what can I do with these together. You could wrap half round wire on these. You could weave these together. You could make the loop smaller so there's more gap space in between. I mean, it's really endless what you can do here, but I kind of like that look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer the big ones first. And I'm going to get my hammering block, and I'm just going to hammer on the arc. Now I want to texture these, so I'm going to use the ball side of my chasing hammer, and I'm just going to start to tap on the outside lip and then tap on the inside lip. So we've got this really pretty textured look. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other. And the others I'll do off camera, but I'll show you what I'm going to do on those. So I'm just going to start tapping, flaring these out. Then I'm going to texture. So we've got 2 textured earrings, and you can go all the way up the legs if you want. So on the middle ones, I'm actually going to squeeze them together a little bit more. I'm always changing my mind as I go, so I'm going to squeeze them together a little bit more. Okay, so on these, I already did one. I'm going to hammer them, and I'm not going to texture them. And I'm holding the top 2 legs together right here. Just going to put my hands down firmly. Okay, just a gentle tap. See how they're lining up perfect. Now I'm going to put these in here to see if I need to narrow them in at all. And I'm going to narrow them in a little bit, and all I'm simply going to do is just squeeze them together. Just squeeze them together. That makes them a little smaller, where the width isn't so wide. And the same thing here. And then I'm going to correct the shape, okay? So I'm going to take these on my mandrel until I can feel it stop. And I'm just going to push. You see that gap right there? I'm just going to push it, round it out more as I squeeze them over. And the same thing here. See the gap? I'm going to push and then squeeze them together. Then I'll line them up. So let's take a look. Perfect. And that should fit in there very nicely. Now I'm just going to texture these. I'm always coming on the edge when I'm texturing, on the inside and outside edge. So you should have 2 pairs of earrings like this. And now we're going to get, you can either use weaving wire or half round wire, but that's what you should have. I'm going to use half round. And I am looking for my 22 gauge half round. And I am just going to grab myself a piece because I'll be using it on both. So I'm just going to guesstimate if I can find the end. And I'm going to cut myself just to let you know. 9 inches of wire. So I'm just going to start wrapping the middle. So if you need to, you can tape them, all right? So to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to open these up on top, just so I have some working room to get in between the wires. I'll be squeezing those back in again. Okay. So let's go ahead and wrap. Now you'll be able to adjust these. You'll be able to swing them around and adjust them as you're wrapping. Just try to center them up the best that you can. So I'm just going to take my wire here, my half round wire, give myself a little bit of a tail so I have something to hold on to. You can also mark the center. So I'm just going to push that through. And I'm pulling very tightly, push it through, and push it through. And I think I'm just going to stop at 4 wraps. And to get my needle nose, really tighten this wire up in the back. Then I'm going to come around. I'm going to roll back on that wire. So I'm kind of pushing it and pulling it. And then I'm going to very gently come down on them, give them a little tap. And then I'm going to crimp them down. This is going to be my back. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to line these up. So we have this. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Give myself a little tail. Line these up. It can be a little fiddly. That's why if you need to tape your sides, you should. You know, always do what's going to give you the best working advantage. Gonna let that stay around the back. And then let's just swing this guy through. Then we're gonna center them up. That's why it's important, I think, especially when you're starting out. I mark all the time. It just keeps you on center, right? I'm rolling on that wire. Now I'm going to center them up. And you, like I said, you can adjust these, so don't worry about that. So we have this. Now it's really up to you where you want to go. You can keep decorating and decorating and decorating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect the sides. And I'm going to get myself my tail here. The nice thing about half round is you can do a lot of sliding with it. So you can really line things up. Just going to push that around. I'm going to do the same thing, 4 wraps. Really tighten that up and pull it down. So they're going to be duplicates, so I'm not going to complete the total 2 because it's the same thing. So they're going to marry each other perfectly. And like I said, you can slide them as high as you want, as low as you want. It's your vision, right? So I'm going to cut myself just a little bit more wire here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Always get in your best working position. Turn your work around if you have to. Don't fight the wire. Coming up underneath that wire on an angle. I slide off that half round. After I get it really good and tight, really rock that in the position that I want, give them a little snip, and then I just really push and slide off. So here's our beautiful earring. So now, what are we going to do with these? That's the fun part about this ancient art. And if you're new to wire wrapping, I encourage you to look at the history. It predates the Phoenicians by 5,000 years. So I'm going to line my earrings up here. And then I'm going to line these up because I haven't completely wrapped both sides on these yet. So I want to make sure that they're even in length. I'm going to do this one a little bit later. So I'm going to line these up. Let me just pick this up. Then make sure that they're the same length. Line them up on my board. And they look pretty good to me. I'm going to square up those tips. By the way, I'm using super flush cutters. When I cut anything larger than an 18 gauge, I use what's called super flush cutters. So now let's play. So we've got our earrings here. Now we can either leave this as a 3-loop or 3-hoop earring, or we can do some decoration. And I like to decorate a lot. So meaning that I'm always looking at where I want to go, what I want to do. I'm going to bring these legs in even closer. These are the middle legs, because I'm going to pick up on these, swing them out. Now here's where you may want to mark. I'm going to bend these over the side of my hoops. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, I just had a vision and I thought, I think I'm going to bend these over my hoops. Now I need enough wire, meaning over the legs. I need enough wire to go over those 2 legs and come back around underneath. So I'm looking at the inside wire, And I'm looking at the length and how much I'm going to need. So I'm going to line this up. And I'm going to mark right at the 1-inch mark. I'm going to go ahead and do that to this one because I need to make sure that they're going to be even. I may not remember what I'm doing, right? Especially when I don't do them side by side. I always recommend to do a little bit on each side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend it at the mark. And then I'm going to bend this one at the mark. So you should have something like this, okay? Then I'm going to hold very firmly here. And I'm going to swing this wire over. And the same thing here, I'm going to hold very firmly on all 3 of the legs, and I'm going to swing this wire over. So you should have something like this. Then I'm simply going to hold firmly here and use my finger. Now this is an 18 gauge wire, just to flatten it down more. I'm going to straighten this one out. There we go. Now you're going to need 2 pairs of pliers for this. So I'm going to grab right here where the wires all come together with my flat nose, and I'm going to grab the tip of this wire here, and I'm going to swing it around. I'm holding really firm. I am pushed down on that flat nose so that my wires don't move, and I'm going to bring it around. So here's what you got. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but I'm going to come from the inside so I can really get a good grip. And then I'm just going to grab at that tip and I'm going to swing that wire around till it comes around the back. So we have this. Then I'm going to snip those and tuck them. Now, if you had enough wire here, you could have brought them all the way around again. I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my flat nose and I'm going to squeeze these in even more before I cut them, just flattening them out. Now I'm going to lift up on the tip, give myself some working room, and I'm going to cut this wire on the inside of this wire. So this is my inside wire here. I'm going to cut this on the inside of it so it doesn't stick out. Then I'm going to roll off that with my flat nose. So I'm rolling off of it and cinching it in. And you shouldn't be able to see it. And same thing over here. Squeeze these in a little bit. Make sure that's rolled in. Then I'm going to lift up on this tip. I'm just rolling it back to give myself some working room. And I'm going to snip it to the inside of the second wire here. Then I'm going to hold firmly. And I'm letting my pliers rest on the wire itself that I want to bend. And I'm going to roll. See, I'm turning my wrist and really cinch that wire in. So here's what we have. Isn't that pretty? And you can just keep going and going and going. I unraveled my half round there. You always want to check your work. So now what do we want to do with these? That's what I'm always thinking. This is totally impromptu, as I mentioned. And so I'm always thinking about, geez, what do I want to do? You know, should I bring these down or should I loop them off? And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in line with that whole concept there. I'm kind of liking that. So I'm going to just even those legs up. And I want to keep these even because I got to come back and do that one. So I'm thinking this time I'm just going to bring these over on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swing one over and the other over. Let's give a little more bend to this. Hold firmly on your piece. So you should have something like that. Okay? So as before, I'm going to get my flat nose. I'm going to hold very firmly. I'm going to grab the tip and I'm going to swing it over and bring it through. So I'm bringing it through the earring. I'm going to stop there because I'm not sure how this is going to look yet. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to grab on the inside of my flat nose, on the inside, and I'm going to bring this over. Because I need to line them up. So I don't want to finish anything off yet until I line them up. I need to make sure that their curves are the same, that they're bending in the same direction. So I'm just making adjustments here and lining these wires up. So I'm going to turn this in. Just turning it in. I'm going to turn this one in. Okay, so here's what you should have. So now I'm going to do a little lining up again. Just want them to look as symmetrical as possible. So now I'm going to get my flat nose and I'm going to come right on the loop of this wire. So I'm literally anchoring off the wire itself and I'm rolling. I'm turning my plier as I roll. And then I'm going to roll it to the back and I'm going to tuck it in. But I don't want it sticking out, so I want to make sure that it's not too long. Now I'm going to really cinch down on that and flatten it down. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to roll this wire in. I'm just keep adjusting my work to get in my best working position. Notice how I keep turning my piece around. I want to, have the best advantage as possible. And then I'm going to roll that wire in. This one is too long. So if you see how it's sticking out, that's too long. It's going to show up on the other side, which is the front of the earring. I don't want that. I'm going to lift. Careful not to bend your piece out of shape. So I'm lifting up on that wire. Then I'm going to get my snippers and I'm going to cut it. Then my flat nose, and I'm just going to cinch it in. So here we have, and I'm going to adjust this down simply by anchoring my wire and moving that down so it's more center. I need to flatten this part out a little bit more and squeeze that in. Just lining them up. We have this beautiful earring here. Isn't that gorgeous? And it's just playing. You could have made these smaller loops inside. It's just playing with the wire. Now to make life really easy, you have multiple options here on how you want to do the top of your earring before you put your jump ring in or your ear hook. But you could do it very simply too, simply by rolling these back. You could cross them over and roll them back. You could bring them all the way down through the center. There's so many different ways to go. I'm going to open these up just a little bit, give myself some working room. I'm going to get my I'm using my 6-step pliers. I'm going to use the number 1, which is the smallest barrel, and I'm going to roll this to the back. So we've got one loop, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm just going to keep rolling. Notice how I move my work, how I flip that to the back, so I have control over my wire. So now we have this. And our earring is done. This could make a beautiful pendant, but for girls that like big earrings, by the way, you guys, these are super sturdy. They're not going to bend out of shape. I want to bring my loops as close together as possible. Now you can still decorate from here. you can still completely decorate. You can add more wire. It's really your imagination. So all you're going to do, you could add multiple jump rings, twisted jump rings. Because this is a big earring, I pre-make a lot of my jump rings in advance. Put them in my little tray here. I don't size them because I can pretty much figure it out by now. I have hooks and clasps and all sorts of things, all different gauges. But because this is such a cool looking earring, I'm going to use a twisted jump ring. And actually, you guys, that is not the one I want to use. And I don't know if I have the big one that I need. I don't. Okay, so let me show you how to make a twisted jump ring. Okay, so I want to show you another technique. So this is a completely mangled piece of scrap wire. I'm going to use this and absolutely make jump rings out of it. And I'm just going to cut off this stuff here and slide this off. I'm going to open it up and cut this off. And slide that off. So now I'm going to straighten this out as much as I can. So I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks and techniques right now. I'm going to get my duckbill, if I can find them. And you see this bend in the wire here? I'm going to start straightening that out. I may have to cut it, but I'm going to do the best I can and try to take advantage of this entire piece of scrap wire and turn it into a twisted set of jump rings. So I'm just doing a lot of straightening and flattening of the wire. It may snap there because that was a pretty definitive bend. Okay, so I've straightened this mangled piece of wire that I'm going to use. I'm not going to let any of my scrap go to waste. So it's already got a lot of twist in it, right? So all the twist and bends, that's not going to affect everything. I'm going to use a pin vise. So I've got this little pin vise here. I'm going to close it down a little bit. And then I'm going to put my wire in there. Now, there's a technique, and it's super easy, where you roll this off your leg. So if you can imagine, you want to tighten it until you hear it lock in. If you can imagine holding this here, okay, because that's going to turn. This thing is going to spin, right? And you hold the end with your plier like this. You would roll this down your thigh. You want to put your legs on the floor and you would roll this down your thigh because this is going to spin. And it's going to twist that wire very quickly for you. I can't demonstrate that because I don't know how to move my camera. So I'm just going to hold the end here and the end here, and I'm just going to twist. And I'm just twisting that wire. Now, because the wire had a lot of different twists in it, you're going to notice flat spots right here, and right here. So let me give you another technique. You're going to come and hold the wire right here where that flat spot is because we need to twist that section. And do you see that? Oh, I'm trying to get my, here we go. So you see where it's not twisted evenly here? So I'm holding right where it was flat. And you will see it start to twist up. Okay, now I'm gonna move up. Now this is where that bend was really tight. And it's probably gonna snap there. And I'm gonna move up because remember this was a mangled piece of wire, so it's super hard, but it makes incredibly strong jump rings. I mean, you want a strong jump ring, twist that wire. Okay, so that's about as good as we're gonna get because of that super sharp bend in there. Okay, so now we're gonna make jump rings. I want a decent sized jump ring on this. Remember, this is 16 gauge wire. So I'm gonna use my number 5 here, and I'm gonna cut off the area that I didn't twist. And I'm going to see if that's as big as I'd like it to be. So if you've never used a six-step bail making plier, you want to have your wire turn to the top. And so what I mean by that is as you're making your first turn, you want to angle the plier to where the first turn, your cut end is staying on top. And there's a reason for that. It allows you to continue to make as many jump rings as you want, depending on the length of your wire. And what will happen is this will keep sliding up as it starts curling down on the bottom. So this wire has really hardened. So I'm just putting pressure back here, rolling my wrist forward, keeping my hand back here because it's, you know, a short piece of wire. See how this is moving up? That way you don't have to stop. Then I'm just going to turn this over and flatten that down. So we've got our jump rings. So I'm using the flush end of the plier towards the inside of that loop. Then I'm going to turn my plier over and get as close as I can and use the flush end on the opposite side so that they're both flush. So here's our beautiful jump ring. Now I'm going to do double jumps on this. I just saw that and thought, I like that. I'm going to do double jumps. It's just going to give more art, you know, artsy look to the earring versus just one jump ring. So I'm going to keep this one to the side so I can remember my size when I get some more scrap wire. And then I'm just going to open these up with my hand, and they are tough, you guys. And I'm going to slide it through. I'm going to get my flat nose and another pair of flat nose. These are just what's called stub nose by Xuron. And I'm going to rock these together. Just gives more texture and I think really pretty design to it. You can do a lot of things with these, you guys. I may not be able to get the two through there. Let me see. May not have enough room. And it's looking like I don't. Nope. Okay, so since I don't have enough room because the loops needed to be bigger, and I'm gonna align my loops. Can't get another 18 gauge wire through there, okay? Because that is a 1.5 millimeter hole. So I think at this point, I'm just gonna grab an ear hook. And a lot of times, I pre-make my ear hooks. Let's see, do I have any pre-made? Does it look like I do? So you know what? We're gonna make an ear hook. I always use 20 gauge round wire. So I'm gonna see if I have enough scrap and get a lot of this paraphernalia out of the way. You guys, you could keep adding jump rings just to give you an idea. You could make these really long. You could add a bead on this jump ring and let it drop down through the middle. And as I mentioned, you can bring in more wire. So let me get some scrap wire and I'll be right back. So I've got myself a piece of scrap wire, and this scrap wire is 2 3/4 inches long. Perfect amount of wire, that's all I'll need. I always use 20 gauge because it's soft. So here's another way if you've never made ear hooks. I'm gonna make these decorative because I'm on this decorative mood. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a very tiny little loop with my number 1 on my 6-step bail making plier. Then let me shrink this down because I saw I was out of camera there. Okay, is that better? All right, so now I've got the loop facing to the right. So I'm going to put it back in my plier to where the number 1 is on the outside. And the loop is facing towards me and it's resting against the barrels. And I'm going to grab here with my finger and I'm going to push that up and around. So we have this. I'm going to take it out. So this is where our, this is the hook where we're going to run through the jump ring, okay? Now I'm looking at that loop and I'm thinking, I think I want that a little bit smaller. So all I'm going to do is cut it. And I kind of want it, you can leave it like that, which is really pretty, and hammer it. I'm going to get my flat nose and I'm going to squeeze it in. Coming off the tip. And I'm just going to squeeze it in. I wanted more of kind of an oval egg shape to that. So there you have it. And it just looks so pretty as an ear hook. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to come and use my number 5. And I'm having this rest between the 2 barrels. And it's facing me. And the number 5 is on the outside. And I'm going to bring this all the way around. And I'm going to swing it in. So we have this beautiful ear hook. Isn't that pretty? Then what I like to do is right where the loop ends, I like to get my pliers. I'm going to straighten this piece of wire out because I'm going to be cutting it anyways. And I like to give it a little kick. I kick that wire back. Then I'm just going to cut it about 1 millimeter to 2. I think I'll do 2 millimeters. So you have this. And then all I'm going to do is hammer it. And I'm going to hammer at the arc. So the arc in the loop, okay? I'm going to hammer. And then to make sure it's nice and strong down here, very gently, I'm giving some gentle taps. And then I like to flare this out, the part that goes through the ear, and I'm dragging away from it. And I'm making it really flat and thin. Okay. So now what I do, all of my pieces go into a tumbler. This is after I oxidize, use stainless steel, wire brushes. Then, so basically I oxidize my pieces, then I use stainless steel, Dawn soap, wire brushes. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to get my 180 grit file and I'm going to bring that flat edge to a point. Then I'm going to get my buffer and I'm going to soften those edges. Even though the tumbler will actually do this for me, it's just habit. So I've got this nice point and this beautiful ear hook. So all we're going to do is slip this through the jump ring. So I'm going to just take that there, slide that through, and we have our beautiful earring. And it is the same thing with each one. I hope that you enjoyed that, everyone. Let's take a look at this beautiful ear hook and this beautiful earring. Let's see. Is that better? So got this beautiful earring, a decorative twisted jump ring, scrap wired, textured edges, and half round wire. So please give me your feedback, everyone. Let me know what you think and if you enjoyed it or if you have any questions. I'm going to finish up the other one. I hope you enjoyed all the details, the techniques, tricks, and tips, and it is always my greatest wish that you know I wish for you all that you wish for yourselves. Have a magical, wonderful wire wrap day. Bye for now.